Hey, if you got young ones around today, this would not be the episode to play out loud. I'd invite you to send them off to another room or listen to this quietly a little bit later. What I'm about to show you is nauseating content of an undercover journalist with a lot of courage who has actually caught one of the biggest porn producers and purveyors of this garbage undercover, admitting to the fact that they are allowing on their website minors, people that have been sex trafficked, to be on the site to make money off of them, and actually even saying that why would they spend money trying to filter this stuff out when it's making them so much money. So check this out.
And tell me like who's in that video of the girl's not showing her face. Like that wouldn't hold in court. That would be the loophole that I always like. I look at that and I'm like, that's everybody is just kind of rolling with it.
Why don't they just roll with it? Why don't they say something?
It costs money.
Exploits the
lot. Everybody. To make a lot of money.
Do rapists use it or?
Of course. We've brought it up to the CPO, we brought it up to the CLO, and they're both telling us it's all good. And the CPO is especially telling us like,
They know the
like
risk.
shut up. No, like, I'm not gonna get caught. It's fine.
But what if like the government was to find out about this loophole? What would they do?
I don't know. They're not gonna do. They'll do nothing. They're done. They don't know. They don't qualify to identify.
Meet Mike Farley. Farley is a product manager at Pornhub who has been working at Pornhub for more than 10 years. In fact, Farley tells our undercover reporter he was one of Pornhub's first employees.
I stick around because when we first made the site, there was like, I got hired there was 6 people. And now we're like 300.
Right. 10 years ago, there were 6 people at Pornhub.
Yeah.
Pornhub is the most trafficked pornography website and one of the most trafficked websites overall in the world. Pornhub is commonly called a tube site, allowing the general public to upload videos. Pornhub's parent company, MindGeek, now rebranded as ALO, owns many big-name porn sites. News reports and lawsuits have claimed Pornhub is complicit in abusers uploading illegal videos, and Pornhub has publicly claimed to have cleaned up its site. We sent an undercover journalist to talk with Mike Farley and other MindGeek employees to get the truth. Watch the following emissions.
Do you think anything slips through the cracks?
Of course.
100%.
How?
I don't know, because it's stupid. Because at the end of the day, it's like, how are you going to tell me, like, who's in that video of the girl's not showing her face? Trying to match boobs and birthmarks on their butts and stuff? Like, you're trying to, I know this guy. That's definitely this guy.
So someone could still lie and get around it?
Because it's stupid, because it's like, I could be a content uploader, and the only thing you need from me is like, you don't need a picture of ID, right? My driver's license, which has my face on it. It has just my face on it. You don't see my body. And now my videos never have my face.
Yeah.
They have to be like, no, like, that guy's body and his matches his face. Like, that's what compliance people are basically saying. It's like, try to, like, that wouldn't hold in court, you know what I mean? Like, that's so subjective. It's not factual, it's your opinion. You think that? Okay. You can't really guarantee that. That would be the loophole that I always, like, I look at that and I'm like, that's stupid, but everybody is just kind of rolling with it.
Why don't they just roll with it? Why don't they say something?
It costs money. It would be counterintuitive for the business. You basically don't want to make your company more compliant than it has to be, right?
Yeah.
Because then it's just wasted money. Like, not only does it cost money to make it compliant, you're reducing the income because of that too. You're spending money on making less money.
Pornhub allows anyone to upload pornographic videos as long as the person uploading shows an ID, such as a driver's license. However, Farley describes a major loophole. These supposedly verified uploaders can upload videos of people without showing their faces, and Pornhub does not verify these videos contain consenting adults. These uploaders can then monetize these videos to gain a share of Pornhub's ad revenue. Our journalist later asked if abusers actually use this loophole.
Who exploits the loophole?
Everybody. Everyone. To make a lot of money. So for example, like I could sign up tomorrow, I submit my ID, I'm putting all my real identification, my bank account and everything, and I just rip content from other people where it's like, this guy's like body in his like it could be based on my face, something like that, right? Like, okay, I'm tall, I'm slim, okay, this guy, okay, whatever, he looks kind of similar. I can just rip those videos, upload them as my own, and the people who review my video will probably be like, this is him. Be like, it's close enough, and I'm gonna make thousands of dollars. I didn't do It's just an easy way to make money.
What's like the worst that could happen with a loophole like that?
Including for who?
I mean,
Us?
do rapists use it, or
Of course.
what about like human traffickers or something? Like, could they use that loophole?
To do to make money? Of course.
Yeah,
With high content partners like Worse.
you can get that.
Who these content partners are, we're still trying to find out. Farley says he has brought up this loophole to officers of the company, but even the chief product officer has told him to, quote, shut up.
You said there is
A lot more like
a loophole where it's obvious that faces on IDs,
yeah.
you can't match the body.
And that's not this is more like that's a business decision of the VP.
The VP.
Like the CPO knows, and as long as like we made a meeting where we're like, yo, like it's like kind of sketch, man, and he's just like, yeah, well, like that's what we're saying, like it's okay. Like that.
Wait, he said what?
Like he's basically saying it's okay because like because the CPO of the company is like the chief product officer. So he just wants to make money as much as possible and grow his product. Then you have Matt Scalici, who's like the VP, chief legal officer, the CIO, and his job is like putting sticks in this guy's wheels. I mean, like, no, that's not okay, no, that's not okay. He's the one he's got the foot on the brake, the other guy's got the foot on the brake. And obviously, like, the CPO is not going to do anything more compliant than is asked by the CLO. And this isn't something that the CLO is doing. The specific issue of like people's driver's license or like their IDs that are telling us like who you are. Like you're giving me the driver's license, let me just your face. And on a video, you're supposed to like assume that it's you or not you based on your body, but maybe you're not showing your face, which is very common, right? A lot of people making thousands a month, they're never showing their face, but their ID is just their face. You can't ask somebody to upload you like head to toe naked ID. You can't ask it. Like legally, you can't ask it.
So the VP's okay with
CLO is not like to him. It's not. I guess it's not a concern. Like it's not something he's imposing on the CPO. We think it's. So we've brought it up to the CPO, we brought it up to the CLO, and they're both telling us it's all good. And the CPO is especially telling us, like, fuck, it's all good. Like, stop.
So they know the
like,
risk.
like, shut up. You know? Because the CPO is like, he's our boss, basically. And we're supposed to not worry about the compliance and legal side. We're supposed to operate within the guidelines given to us by them. But if they we're not supposed to, like, help them regulate us. You know, we're like regulating ourselves based on our own logic because it wasn't imposed on us by them. So we're like just using my head. Like, I wouldn't be able to defend this in court. You know, tell me, defend this. Tell me this is good. They're like, yeah, it's all good. All right. Sorry, CPO is like, yeah, it's all good, man. Don't worry. Like, but we made like a recorded meeting of that. And on record, me and my boss Ramsey definitely identified that as being, because we're being like, a lot of people like at my level and up, we have like depositions. We have to go to like courts. And people of like the government actually want to know like what's happening. Luckily, I haven't had to do that. We have like corporate lawyers that like brief you on what to say. Basically, always just saying that.
Who were the things you know?
Pretty much.
Who would it?
Well, it's like they have to ask like if they ask you a big question, you can like get away by saying you don't know because you don't know all the answers to the big question. But if they ask you a specific question that you know the answer to, you can. But like you play on the way they ask the question to be able to prove it. It's all just stupid.
While Farley seems afraid of going to court, Pornhub seems to think it won't get caught.
What if, like, the government was to find out about this loophole? What would they do?
I don't know. They're not going to do They'll do nothing. They're dumb. They don't know. They're not qualified to identify the loophole. They already did their investigation. They were satisfied. They technically checked and said that it's all good. So they can't really go back on that. We didn't change it.
So if they knew what you knew now, would they be satisfied?
Yeah. I don't know. Allegedly. I don't know. Why? You like work for the government or something?
Finally, Farley presents an obvious solution, but says Pornhub's profits come first.
But what's the solution then? What's your solution? Like, what should be happening that's not?
You should have content up that you can't identify the person.
How would you do that?
Huh?
How would that be done?
Because they would lose a lot of money. That's why they don't want to do it. Which is fine. I'm not saying it's the wrong answer. It's for them to call the shots. If I was in their position, I'd probably do what they're doing too. I'd be like, it's all good. I'm not going to get caught. It's fine.
Now, odds are, after watching that, you're a little bit upset, frustrated, angry, hopefully. We're going to take a look with Arden Young, the undercover journalist who was able to expose Pornhub and take a look at how corrupt. I mean, it's not going to be a shocker that, pornographers aren't the most upstanding citizens, but the depths to which they will go to degrade women and children is absolutely mind-boggling. But instead of just leading you into the depths of all this bad news, we're going to actually show what you can do in your own life to help ban this stuff in your own individual state, legislation that can be helped to be put forward to protect women, children, and all the victims of the sex trade industry. If you want to support this show, you believe what we're doing, one, it really helps if you like this. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the notification bell to get more episodes, because the more you like, the more you comment, the more YouTube is going to show this to other people to expose the filth that's going on in terms of Pornhub. If you want to also support the show, we encourage you to join our community at Patreon. You just go to patreon.com/Jason Evert, and you can maybe support us at $10 a month or something like that. You'll become part of this online community at Patreon, where we give you early access to the episodes, free swag and t-shirts and books and things. And then if I come to your area, we can meet up one-on-one or a group of friends, do lunch or dinner together. So just hit the link in the show notes, patreon.com/Jason Evert, to become part of the community and support the program. But without further ado, undercover investigative journalist Arden Young. Here she is. Arden, thanks for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, first, just want to thank you for your courage and diving into this. I'm sure maybe 5-10 years ago, this was not kind of on your list of like, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up kind of thing. So tell our listeners, like, how did you get into this? I mean, most people just are like, hey, I'll just do an undercover sting operation against one of the biggest porn companies in the galaxy to try to bring them down. But I mean, heroic effort, which you're involved in, like, how did you get to know where you are right now?
Yeah, thanks for asking. That's a good question. So I grew up working as an actress in Hollywood, and I think that some of the experiences I went through at a young age caused me to have sexual exploitation as an issue on my radar in the first place. I think that planted the seed that made me care about it. And then after I left Hollywood for a variety of reasons in my early 20s, I got into undercover journalism. I randomly met an undercover journalist at a party, and he showed me his work. I had never heard of even what undercover journalism was, and I thought it was so cool. And so I decided to give it a try. I had an acting background. My dad was a private investigator, and I thought it was so funny that it was just kind of like this strange, perfect combination of acting and investigations.
So go on.
So I got into undercover journalism, and I did that for I've done that for 5 years now. But this Pornhub investigation that we just released at the end of last year is my first public investigation I've done.
So was I imagine there's a lot of fear going into it. I mean, you had a couple of years under your belt in terms of how to do it, but I imagine it's got to be pretty scary in terms of like, okay, what if they out me in the middle of this? You know, is he going to get aggressive? Is he going to get angry? Or are they going to, come after me legally or physically? What is that like? How did the door even open for you to be interviewing, an executive? What was he, a product manager over there at Pornhub?
He's the senior product manager over at Pornhub. He's been there for 11 years, and he claims that he's the 7th employee to ever be hired at Pornhub. So, it was an incredible opportunity to be able to sit down in front of him. And there were a lot of nerves for sure, because for one, they're headquartered in Montreal. So most of these interviews took place in Montreal. I'm American. I had never been to Montreal. The language there, most people speak French. And I basically had to pretend and pull off that I lived there. So that was very difficult. That was the thing that I was most worried about, really. Yeah. But what we did have going for our advantage is that in Canada, undercover journalism really hasn't been seen on a wide scale. Here in America, it's probably a little bit more well-known. And we also had the advantage that we were investigating the adult entertainment industry, which also hasn't seen undercover journalism that we know of. So if we had been investigating, say, a different industry here in America, I think there would be a lot more paranoia with the people you're interviewing, and maybe they would be a little bit, it would be easier for them to catch on. But I think the subjects that we were interviewing just had no idea or thought in their mind that an undercover journalist could be talking to them.
Now, what did they think that you were wanting in the first place? Like you call them up, hey, can we do a lunch meeting to talk about XYZ? What is it that they thought that they were getting into?
Yeah, so I was in contact with different people. I think I talked to about a dozen employees total, and I contacted them in a multitude of different ways. So some of them were dating apps, and some of them were, I contacted them, say, through like LinkedIn or other sites that were more of like a professional nature. Like there was one guy who worked for the parent company of Pornhub, and he had his own business on the side, and I contacted him through there.
Now, did you guys have an end goal in terms of like, this is the nugget that we want to get them to admit to? So you'd kind of already done your homework in terms of like what that big fish was that you were kind of looking to get them to admit to on camera. Yeah. And then what do you like put like a little secret camera in your purse and kind of drop it on the table? Is that how that works? I mean,
yeah, it's honestly, it's as simple as that, really. And what we were really going for was the knowledge of non-consensual and underage material being uploaded to the site, and then purposefully not taking it down or doing anything about it because it made them money. And that's exactly what we proved with the first meeting that I went on. And we just kept getting the same types of admissions from different types of employees, which was mind-blowing.
Now, at the top of the show, I showed a little clip of him talking about loopholes. Can you kind of explain that to the viewers, like how that works and how they think that somehow, relieves them of any, it gives them immunity from what it is that they're exposing people to on the internet? What are these
Yeah.
loopholes and how are they taking advantage of them?
Yeah, so Mike Farley is a senior product manager at Pornhub. He's been there for a very long time, and he works with the C-suite executives. And so he explained this loophole to me where basically in the upload process, if you're uploading a pornographic video to Pornhub, they allow videos where participants don't show their faces. So even if a content moderator were to look at an uploader's ID with their face on it and then compare it to a video, there's no reasonable way a content moderator can match a face on an ID to just a body in a video. And so what Mike Farley explains is that this is a loophole that traffickers and rapists use to make money. People use this to make money and exploit others, and we know about it. I've tried to address it with C-suite executives, but they told me to F off and shut up about it. So they absolutely know what's going on. And they're not changing that policy because it makes them a lot of money.
So who's getting to make the call in terms of what the age is of the person whose images are being uploaded, whose faces are not appearing? Are they relying upon, the honesty of the sex traffickers, or do they kind of just punt it over to Pornhub and say, well, you guys decide if they're underage or not? Like who's making the final call there?
It's really difficult to say. They claim to have like advanced technology that they use to be able to tell someone's age by their body parts. I'm personally not buying it. We know by their own admissions that underage videos are on the platform. We know by their own admissions that the employees there have no idea who these people are or how old they are or where these videos are coming from. And we know they don't really care as long as they're not caught. And we know by their own admissions that the process of actually taking the time and resources to properly content moderate would cost them more money than they're willing to invest, because in Mike Farley's words, he says, why would we spend money on making less money? It makes no sense.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, this shouldn't be any big shocker to the viewers. Wait a minute, like pornographers aren't highly ethical people? Like this is coming as like a massive shock to me.
And this is mind-blowing because actually there's a new firm that acquired the parent company of Pornhub. It's called ALO last year, and they're actually called Ethical Capital Partners. And the founding member of this firm is Solomon Friedman. He's now the owner of Pornhub. And he is actually a former defense attorney of child sex predators.
Wow.
So he was very well known in that community, in the legal community, for getting lesser sentences for child sex offenders and for even getting cases dismissed on technicalities. And he celebrated these things. He coached other defense attorneys on how to better defend child sex predators. You can't make this stuff up. It's just crazy.
Wow. That's like calling Lucifer the angel of light. It's like, not really. Now, let's say a girl has been the victim of sextortion from some ex-boyfriend or some child who's been sex trafficked, has gotten out of the sex trade industry. They know that there's these images of them on Pornhub, and obviously they want to get them down. Like, what recourse do they have? Like, does Pornhub care at all? Like, when the kids contact them or their parents contact them and say, look, I did not consent to have that image up there, and I'm an adult or I'm a child and my images are up there. What are the odds of them actually getting that removed from the platform?
So what we do know is that victims who have the resources to be able to reach out to a platform like Pornhub, they report being ignored, being sent on wild goose chases to even prove they are who they say they are, or they are underage, or whatever it may be. And they report being caused more trauma than it's worth to reach out to try to get these videos taken down. So many of them just give up. There have been suicides, huge mental health struggles, and really there's this article that was published in the New York Times in 2020. You probably read it. It's called The Children of Pornhub. And it actually details these victims' struggles to get their abuse materials taken off of the site. So to this day, it's really unknown, and it seems hit and miss for people reaching out with non-consensual content on the site. I spoke to a content moderation employee in an undercover recording that we published, and she said they would get calls all the time from girls saying, "Hey, this is me, take this down. I didn't consent to this." She said she looked at videos that she had no idea where they came from. It very well could have been, underage OnlyFans models being pimped out by some manager. She had no idea where they came from.
Yeah, I remember speaking at a high school assembly years ago and was talking to this girl, and she had a very abusive family. And so she ran away from the house and she got taken in by a pair of older guys, we'll take care of you, and then they'd give her drugs, they'd get her drunk, they'd use her for porn, and they'd take pictures when she's inebriated and videos and all this stuff. And then, she eventually ran away from him. It was a very, threatening, frightening environment to be in. And she and her friend who was involved in it, they both ran away, got away from these guys. And then they ended up breaking back into their house when the guys weren't around and, got up into their closets and found these storage files, photo albums, videos, like all this stuff, not only of them, but like of all of these other girls who were involved in this whole thing. And, they were able to steal it. And, I don't know to what extent they were able to successfully prosecute these guys or not. But these guys who are using this stuff, they're just kind of uploading it, throwing it up there, and then just Pornhub basically direct deposits a check based upon how many clicks they're getting or how many ad impressions are being made. Because a lot of people think, well, look, I'm not paying, for porn. It's just free porn. So I'm not really contributing to the industry because I'm not paying any money. And they don't understand that just by the virtue of the fact an ad is being shown to you, money is going somewhere. So you can't just be like, hey, hands off. Can you explain why that's the case? That it's not just those who pay for porn that are contributing, but those who are even spending a second of their existence are actually perpetuating this abuse.
Yeah, sites like Pornhub make more money off of ad revenue than they do off of paid subscriptions from the user. So these advertisers, which are often really, really sketchy companies, pay Pornhub a lot of money. They have their own in-house ad network called Traffic Junkie. They pay Traffic Junkie a lot of money to display these ads to viewers. And that's really how they make most of their money. So when you're on Pornhub, you see an ad pop up, the poster and the platform itself is getting paid. And they make more money off of you viewing their content than you could ever give to them. Wow. So that is what they value. They value your viewership. They boast 180 million unique viewers a day. That's insane. Pornhub, I believe it still sits at the number 8 most visited website in the entire world. They're absolutely making bank off of your viewership, and it is a free site, but it's really, really not.
Wow. Yeah, I remember seeing years ago, because they released their annual statistics in terms of how much time people are spending on the platform. And it was something like 4.5 billion hours spent watching porn. And then, I did the math, and it was like 500,000 years of human life, like wasted in 1 year on one porn website. And, you don't have to click on the ad for the revenue to go back to that company, because it's probably not financially based that way. It's probably just, it's based on ad exposure. We're going to expose your ad to 500,000 people this week. And in exchange, you're going to send us a check for this amount. And
yes,
it's like, it makes your blood boil. It makes me want to just
it
pick
really
up a
does. And speaking of ads, they're also very predatory and manipulative toward the viewer. So I spoke with a writer for ALO, the parent company of Pornhub, and he writes the content that goes into these ads that are shown to the viewer. And he says that they purposefully market LGBTQ content, so gay, bi, trans pornography, to historically straight viewers. And yes, they absolutely know what videos you've been clicking on historically to see what your sexual orientation is. So they purposefully market LGBTQ content to the straight viewer to expand their marketability, to expand, to convert them to enjoy these types of videos, to be able to sell them a wider variety of product.
Man, and I've met the kids on the receiving end of this. I mean, I remember talking to a college guy who's, wrestling with the idea of, am I trans? What's going on? And I started talking through the whole thing, and where it just kind of started is just, he was just looking at straight porn on, these websites. And then, eventually that's not enough of a shock to the system, and they need, a higher hit of dopamine or whatever, and then they go back and then they see this, and they're already kind of in this aroused, isolated, shameful state. And it's like, well, what's that? And they start going down just this rabbit hole. And before you know it, they're in this world of perversion that like they had never even imagined that they would even desire in the first place. But I remember reading once that the pleasure center of the brain is the medial preoptic nucleus, and it's extremely easy to train. And so it's kind of like Pavlov's dog, where you kind of ring a bell, feed the dog, ring a bell, feed the dog. And then eventually all you have to do is ring the bell and the dog starts salivating. And it works the same way, that if what you're looking at is some like dirty, illicit, forbidden sexual fantasy, your brain starts to just wed that with porn. So, okay, what is sexually arousing? Porn. That's what it is. That's why they put, perfume samples in men's pornographic magazines, because they want you to associate the smell with the sight and the feeling. And so I've seen these young adults that have now, they're questioning their own gender identity and whether or not they need to transition, because they're wondering, am I even straight? Because like I did experience arousal while looking at that thing, maybe I'm not as straight as I thought. And then I imagine from Pornhub, it's like, wow, this just opened up a whole library of porn that you never thought you wanted in the first place. Now you're going to seek out. And I would imagine it's the same thing with kind of showing younger looking porn stars on there, that they're looking for pedophiles as well to come in. And I remember hearing the language of just, they're looking to catch a whale is what they're doing. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah. So Dylan Rice is the writer I spoke to and recorded our conversation. And he talks about how the ads that perform the best monetarily on the platform is ads where the actor appears to be about 15 years old. And he said this is because it draws in pedophiles that you can turn into whales, aka big spenders. And it also draws in young teens. And he doesn't elaborate on that a lot, but I imagine hooking a young audience guarantees a visiting customer for life. Wow. And I think that is so despicable. They absolutely know pedophiles are viewing their product and are spending money on their product. And they absolutely know children, minors, are getting addicted to their product as well. So, and another thing I wanted to bring up about the LGBTQ content is Dylan also says that one of the sites he works on that is owned by the parent company of Pornhub, it's called Trans Angels. He says that the main buyers for that site, it's a paid subscription website, are actually straight men. And I thought this was really fascinating. And he also seemed fascinated by the fact too, and something he would know, he works on the site. But the main buyers of that site's content, Trans Angels, it's mainly female presenting trans people. So I did visit this site. I personally saw that these models, I guess they refer to them as, from the waist up, they appear to be female. And I am a female. I would know, it tricked me as well. So these men are straight men who have historically enjoyed watching lesbian pornography, who are then hooked on this Trans Angels website because the content it's geared to look like it's female on female, except you are watching biological males. And that's really disturbing that they're aware of that and keep track.
Did he have, or you have, any insight as to what it is that is appealing to the guys? If they identify as straight men, is it just that they just got bored from so much porn they saw that was kind of vanilla, that they kind of just need to try something different? I remember meeting a high school boy, I'll never forget, he said, Yeah, he said, yeah, he said, like when I go home from school on the weekend, he said, I watch 12 hours of porn on Saturday. Then I go to bed. I wake up, I watch 12 hours of porn on Sunday. And then I just come back to school on Monday. He said, I don't even enjoy it anymore. It disgusts me, but I don't even know how to live without it. Is that maybe the profile of the type of person that just gets bored with the soft core and then they end up going into violent stuff, into young stuff, into trans stuff, just because they've just almost seen it all by the time they turn 16, 17 years old?
It's heartbreaking, and I don't know, but
Yeah.
I have to imagine so. It's really sad and heartbreaking. I don't know the psychological ins and outs of why, but I do know that this company intentionally tries to, in their own words, push the envelope
Mhm.
and expose people to more and more content that's less accepted, in their own words, in society.
Now, when you were talking to some of the executives, do they look at the ads as like kind of an arm's length transaction? Like, hey, if they end up having minors on, it's their job to, do the evaluations. It's not our job. Once we get, the ads, we just kind of put them on there. It's their job to screen for consent and age. Is that kind of the posture that Pornhub executives took? That the ads aren't our fault. It's the advertiser's fault if they don't properly
Yeah,
vet the
that
model?
is kind of their view, but it's funny because everything's done in-house. Pornhub's parent company owns so many pornographic websites. They own production studios, they have their own ads platform, Traffic Junkie. They do everything in-house. They're not relying on some third-party ad partner to take care of their ads for them. So I posed as an advertiser and called Traffic Junkie, their own platform, and I said, hey, I have a bunch of videos that I was hired to post to your site as advertisements, and these girls appear to be really young. I think they could be underage. Should I upload them anyway? What's the process like? Am I going to get in trouble? And the customer service person tells me, underage is something that we decide on our end, so you don't have to worry about it. And if we do deem something underage, your account is not likely to become suspended. And we also do not report to law enforcement. That's not our job. So the question is, what are they doing? And I also spoke and recorded a compliance employee who worked for the ads platform. And part of her job was to review the ads that go on the site that maybe some questions are raised about the ad. And she said she was told to judge whether a girl is underage or not on whether she's wearing makeup. So she was told that if she's looking at a girl who could be 15, 16, 17, or 18, who knows these days, right? If she's wearing makeup, then she should be 18, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And that was one of the criteria that they used. She said she was extremely bothered by it. And when she tried to push her issues up the chain, she was just given lip service and nothing was addressed. And so she eventually quit.
Now, obviously, this stuff is highly illegal, but obscenity laws, at least here in the States, are so rarely actually prosecuted. Is Pornhub worried about this, or just like, hey, we make so many hundreds of millions of dollars on porn, we can hire the best legal advocates, imaginable, and we know how to work all the loopholes. We're not even based in America. We got a Canadian system behind it. Like,
Yeah.
are they worried about this? Are they afraid, like, we got to really watch our backs now, or we get shut down?
Yeah.
What actions are states able to take that where you can actually either prosecute them or remove them from your citizens being exposed to the garbage? To what extent are these actions able to be prosecuted?
So I believe that Pornhub is sweating a lot. I think they're under a lot of pressure and they are worried, even though they do have a lot of power. We see little cracks in their armor. So they have revised their upload policy a couple of different times now, and it doesn't address all the issues, not even close. But the fact that they're actually revising it shows that they're trying to bring on the appearance that they're trying to be more responsible. And most people don't know this, but they actually were criminally investigated by the Eastern District of New York. for profiting off of sex trafficking material. Pornhub admitted to profiting off of sex trafficking material. And unfortunately, they were given a slap on the wrist. So they are now on a probationary period. And at the end of 3 years, if no new sex trafficking content is found on the site, then their criminal charges are dropped. But I do have to say there's a lot of class action suits by victims happening against Pornhub and its parent company. There is a new child sex trafficking case out of Alabama, and it was just certified as a class action suit. And 2 of the subjects that I recorded were subpoenaed to testify in the case. Unfortunately, Pornhub seems to be really shuffling things around to make sure that doesn't happen. We found out that Mike Farley, one of the guys I recorded who seemed to know the most, is no longer at Pornhub, so he doesn't technically have to testify anymore.
Wow.
And so I really do think they are sweating. They still have a lot of power, but things are affecting them. We are seeing more and more age verification laws passing across the US. So more and more states are deciding that you should have to provide proof that you are 18 and over to access an adult website. And Pornhub hates this. They're getting litigious with different US states to try to say that this is some like freedom of speech violation, which is a stupid argument. Yes. And they're saying their argument in their own words is that when age verification policies are adopted, their traffic to their site at that location drops by 80%.
Now you're meaning age verification of the user, not necessarily of the person behind the screen.
To access the site as a viewer, they say that verifying age drops traffic by 80%. So they're saying that is detrimental to their business.
Now, do you think that's because there's a lot of underage users who don't have a driver's license to upload to prove their age, or it's grown adults who don't want to put their identification out there to be like, hey, I'm looking at this stuff and I'm a judge, I'm a pastor, I'm a, whoever. Do you think it's more the minors dropping out because they don't have the ID, or the adults who just want to retain some anonymity, to their dark habits?
I think it's both. I definitely think it's both. It's hard to say, percentage wise, what's what, but we know that there are a lot of minors who view pornographic content. I was personally, as a child, exposed to pornographic content by another child when I was 8. And this is something that has happened since the internet and is going to continue to happen. Countless kids are exposed to pornography by other kids. Oftentimes it's not even another adult. And I'm sure you know this better than most people because of the work you do. So I also think when adults don't want to put their identification in to prove their age, I think there's a shame element in there. Of course, they want their anonymity, but I think it's a step that makes them have a second thought and say, I'm not doing this,
Now, are these restrictions being put into place on a state-by-state level as opposed to a federal one? Yes. And are these states seeing some success?
Yeah, it's at a state-by-state level. There's probably close to a dozen states now that are adopting age verification laws. I think it was introduced in Louisiana, Utah, North Carolina, Virginia, Texas. So they're passing almost unanimously in each state when they do pass. And I think that it's a really good thing. It's something that both sides of the aisle are genuinely coming together on because it is such a problem that minors are being exposed to this material.
Is there anything holding up the states that haven't done this yet, or those just bills haven't been put forth? Is there some state that's like, no, we don't need to know if there's a 12-year-old accessing Pornhub? Is it just a matter of time before, God willing, all 50 states can unite on this?
I don't know what's holding up the states that haven't done it yet. I think that, unfortunately, the adult industry have, in some cases, have used the free speech argument successfully, say in a state like Arizona, I think that it's hard to get politicians to get behind these types of laws because, people say that it's a violation of their privacy and their free speech and whatever it may be. So hopefully that people can see around the adult industry talking point that it somehow violates free speech to need to prove your age to access obscene materials.
That's just nuts. So have you experienced any, retribution, retaliation, threats, legal, whatever, after this came out of, maybe their company or people associated with them kind of legally coming after you or the people that you're working with to shut down your efforts?
Yeah, so we received 4 legal threats from Pornhub's legal team now. And it seems like pretty empty stuff. They used some really ridiculous arguments. They actually had the audacity to say that we non-consensually recorded and uploaded videos of their employees, which the irony is crazy. And I don't think they're really going to follow through on suing us. At least, I hope they don't, but I don't think they will because it would open them up to discovery and also kind of put more attention on our investigation and legitimize it in some ways. And we definitely know for a fact they're angry with us, but I don't know. Hopefully there's no next steps because everything we did was completely legal.
Now, should they take this legal action? I mean, you've already, I imagine, had to hire attorneys and things like this. Like, how are you funding this whole thing? And I would imagine if they really do pursue litigation, it would almost be a nice fundraiser because you could announce what it is that they're doing, and then I'm sure there'd be some generous people that get stepped forward. But how have you been able to fund it thus far?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we are a nonprofit, but so far we're completely self-funded by the founder. It's just me and the founder, 2-person team, and it's completely self-funded so far, a passion project that he had saved up for years to be able to do this.
That's awesome. I mean, one of the things I love about what you're doing is I really believe that, obviously the problem with porn isn't that they're underage. The problem with porn isn't that they don't consent. The problem is that it's a human being being objectified, whether they're 3 years old or 35 years old or whatever. It's just completely irrelevant. I remember St. John Paul II said that God has assigned as a task to every man the dignity of every woman. And it's just one of my favorite quotes, like, this is your job, is the dignity of a woman. And obviously, these executives are doing the absolute inversion of that. It's not a freedom of a speech, it's a freedom to violate women. And I really think that the porn industry would completely implode if it just showed more of the women. And what I mean by that is that all that's shown obviously is the body parts, that's all that's seen. But if we could kind of zoom out the lens to the woman as a human being, I think of just 3 examples that come to mind. I remember sitting in the lobby of a hotel in Los Angeles at a conference, and I was just talking to a friend late into the night, and it must have been like 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning. And a woman comes out with a mop and she just starts mopping the floors. And she overheard our conversation talking about God, and she came over and kind of put the mop down. And then she just started telling us her story that, she was in an abusive relationship with a guy. She got pregnant, and she was stripping at the time to help pay, for the kid and to be able to live. And then, she ended up leaving this guy and she's like homeless. So she's stripping to make ends meet. And then she eventually quit the stripping. And now she's working a graveyard shift in a hotel, mopping the floors just to put food on the table for her poor boy. And like, if someone watching porn were to realize, okay, that's what I'm looking at. Like, I'm looking at this victim of domestic abuse who's not doing this because it's so sexually liberating, but because her 4-year-old needs some food before he goes to school in the morning, not hungry. Like, how much arousal could you attain from watching that type of garbage? And then I remember another woman in the porn industry, she quit after, I think it was like her 4th abortion. Like, she just couldn't take it anymore. And if looking at a film, you knew in that act of porn, a child is being conceived that is going to be taken to an abortion clinic, 3, 4, 5 weeks from now. How much enjoyment can you get from that video? Think of another one that the woman is in the porn shoot, and it took, the end product of the video was, 5 minutes long or whatever, but it just took hours and hours and hours to film this scene. And it was so, degrading and violent that by the time the filming was done, the woman actually needed to be hospitalized. But the porn producer was such a jerk, he wouldn't actually take her to the hospital. He called an Uber to bring her to the hospital because he didn't want to bother taking her there because he was finished with her because he got the footage he wanted. And so to me, what you're doing is you're really zooming out the lens of just like, no, the problem with Pornhub is not that it shows too much, but it's showing too little, of the human being. Let's show the whole woman. And once we show the whole woman, it's almost like cigarette smoking. Once you see what it does to your lungs, you're not going to want it. And so I think to me, the end game isn't just necessarily have all these laws in place, which we need to do. But man, the end game would be to a place where this is not what we desire because we love women too much. And so I love what you're doing. And so for all the people watching this whose blood is boiling and they're like, okay, what do I do now besides grab a vomit bag? Like, what can I actually do? Whether get in touch with my state legislators or support the work that you're doing. How do they connect to you? How is this? Let's just make this show more than, gee, that really made me angry and I hate porn more than I did a half hour ago. What do they do to follow up after hearing this?
Absolutely. They can definitely contact their state legislators. If your state already has not introduced a law that requires age verification to access obscene materials, definitely write your state legislators. It really does make a difference. Public pressure, I think, is the only thing these days that makes a difference in politics. And also, you can support us. You can go to soundinvestigations.com and support our work. You can donate to keep us going. We love to keep doing investigations and further our work. We have so much follow through to do with lawmakers and attorneys general who have expressed interest in pursuing Pornhub and holding them accountable further. And yeah, thank you so much. I'm most active on Twitter. I'm trying to find an alternative platform because unfortunately I'm super, super limited on Twitter.
Have they just shadow banned you?
They shadow banned me, they demonetized me, they did lock me out for a little bit, and they deactivated 2 of our undercover videos. And it happened to be the 2 that Pornhub was most angry about.
Wow.
So I don't really think it's a coincidence. Yeah. And it just really stinks because I had a lot more faith in how we could operate on Twitter. So it is what it is. But
yeah,
my handle is Arden_Young_, and you do have to type in the whole thing to find me. But it's greatly appreciated because that's how we get updates out so far. And any little like on the tweet or retweet really helps.
Yeah, and I've seen that myself. I mean, we've got 40,000+ people following us on X, and I've sometimes looked at the statistics of some of the tweets. Like, okay, I used to think, oh, this is going out to 40,000 people, and I actually looked down. It's like, no, 36 people saw it on all of X. I'm like, what's going on here? If one door is shut, let's go around another. So you can retweet her tweets. If you're watching this on YouTube, like it, share it, hit the notification bell, do that kind of stuff, because the more people that like this, the more people that comment on this, start a discussion in the thread, that tells the algorithm, okay, let's show this to a couple more people. So a lot of people don't understand, when you're hitting like on a video on YouTube, you're actually showing that video to more people. And so like this thing, share it, retweet, whatever. Pray for the work that you're doing, financially support the work that you're doing. But God love you, God bless you. What's next now? Okay, so you've got these expose pieces that have come out. What's next on the horizon in terms of pushing this thing forward?
Yeah, we have a lot of follow through to do. We had some lawmakers take interest in introducing bills to prevent things described in the loophole that Mike Farley tells me about, to prevent faceless people from being allowed to post pornography or be posted in pornography, to prevent exploitation. And we want to further that work. We also want to do more undercover work within the adult entertainment industry and possibly outside the industry as well. But our passion remains protecting children, protecting adults, and exposing exploitation.
That's awesome. Well, God bless you. Keep up the wonderful work. Know that you are in our prayers. I'd ask our listeners to please pray for the work that you're doing, for your protection and the fruitfulness of all the effort. And then God would just cover you with his angels when you go into these dark places of just shielding the eyes of the other to see the motives that you're doing so you can bring their actions into the light. And God willing, this scourge of porn could be ended, before long. So God bless you. Keep up the wonderful work. And again, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.